Hi, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us here this week for Wildlife Wednesday at Crow. My name's Rachel, and today we're going to be taking you down to the hospital to follow up on one of our patients that's been getting quite a bit of coverage on our social media pages, our bald eagle patient. Now, if you haven't been following our social media recently, this patient was brought in back in March due to a presumed fight with another bald eagle. Since during breeding season, hormones can get kind of high, and bald eagles can engage in what's known as interspecies aggression, where one will try to outcompete each other for resources or sometimes even mating territory. So when this patient was brought into Crow, it was shown signs of some damage, including damage to important flight feathers. While the patient was recovering here, not only were we dealing with the missing feathers, but we were also trying to treat folliculitis, which is a term used for an infection and inflammation around new feather growth. So this patient was exhibiting issues with regrowing new feathers. One of the treatment protocols that was engaged by our medical staff was feather imping, where we were using feathers from donated bald eagles to transplant or imp into where the damaged feathers was. And over the course of the last few months, new feathers have began to grow. So when we're down at the hospital today, Brianna Frankel, our rehabilitation manager, will be following up with some other members of our rehab staff to check on the status of this new feather growth. Let's join them down there.
Everybody, and welcome back to Wildlife Wednesday. My name is Brianna, and I am the rehabilitation manager here at Crow. Today you're going to be coming with us into our large flight enclosure, where we're going to catch up our bald eagle patient who's been having some feather growing issues. We're going to take a look and see what we find, see how the feathers have been growing, and we'll be back for a conclusion at the end of the video. So right now our rehabber Morgan, she is currently doing a little bit of physical therapy with our bald eagle's right wing. If you know sports, you know if you don't use it, you lose it. And that's the same in wildlife. If you don't use certain muscles for a long period of time, they can become contracted, which makes it very difficult for the animal to regain full flight in this situation. So what Morgan's doing, she's pushing up on the elbow and she's pushing out at the wrist, and she's allowing that eagle to maintain full range of motion, hopefully. Once these feathers grow back in, we're hoping that with a lot of physical therapy on his part with additional flights and practicing flights and getting stronger, that he will maintain a full range of motion. So this eagle's right wing has been the issue the entire time he's been here at Crow. So as you know, we did previously imp 3 feathers. Since then, 2 of those have fallen out and they are being replaced by healthy growing feathers. So what we have for this eagle, on the far side, we have number 10, which is a feather that hasn't been pushed out. It's an old feather. It's been cut off. We have 9, 8, and 7, which are all in blood. So that's the 3 that Morgan's pointing to right there. Below that, we have 6, which is a feather that was previously imped, and he has not started to grow in a new feather. And below that, we have number 5. So you can see all these feathers that are starting to come out of the blood feathers, out of the blood shafts, are healthy, and they look overall very good. Below that, we're missing a feather right in between, so you can see that there's a gap there, and there is the end of the shaft. And then below that, we have the rest of the primaries. So as they finish growing in, we're hopeful that there may just be maybe 2 or 3 feathers overall missing that we could potentially imp, or he will be flighted enough to be released without those feathers. So on this eagle's left wing, when we are counting the primaries, we start at number 10, which is the furthest on the outside that Morgan's holding right there. And as we count down, we'll notice we have 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, and then number 4 is in blood currently. If we look a little bit higher up, you can actually see this beautiful blood shaft that it's growing out of right there. So we have 4, we have 3, which is also a newer feather, which you can tell by the different color. We have 2, which is beautiful, and 1 that's also in blood, currently erupting from the end of the shaft there, as you can see. Once those 2 fully grow in, we'll have a full set of primaries, and then starts the secondaries. So our secondaries, the one that Morgan's pointing to, that's the
beginning of the secondaries, and we do have a full set of secondaries here on this wing. This gorgeous outline right here, that's everything he needs for flight. You can see our eagle's tail feathers are pretty tattered, and those feathers could be as old as 2 years. So some of these tattered ones he's starting to get rid of, and he is molting those tail feathers symmetrically on both sides. Now on the furthest outside, we have number 1 from each side, which Morgan's holding there. Then we have 2, we have 3, and then on both sides, number 4s are both growing in beautifully. You can really see the quality of the tail feather growing in and how healthy it is in comparison to the other feathers that are very frayed and tattered at the end. And then we have 5 on both sides, and then we have 6. And you'll see one side of number 6, the right side, is absolutely gorgeous and just about fully grown out and very healthy looking.
General conclusion for what you just saw, we found that our bald eagle, the left wing, is looking very healthy, and that most of the feathers are growing in. There's only 2 that are continuing to grow in and probably have a couple weeks left of rehab before they're in full function. But on that left wing, all of the primaries and secondaries are accounted for. Now on the right wing, you saw that there's quite a few feathers missing. There's quite a few feathers in blood, and they are still growing in. It can be a very painful process for our bald eagles as their feathers are massive. So he is getting some additional pain medication to help with that growth. You'll notice that we do have several blood shafts, and there are actually a couple feathers that are missing entirely, as well as one of the previously imped feathers that is still in place. As for the tail is looking really good. We've got 4 really well-formed blood feathers that are growing in on both sides, and then there's one in the middle that's fully grown in at this point. Thank you all for joining us on this Wildlife Wednesday. It has been a pleasure showing you our large white and bald eagle, and hopefully you come back next week. As always, feel free to support us with our Amazon account. Feel free to check out our online gift shop and stay in touch.
Thank you, Bree, and our rehabbers for sharing all of that wonderful information. Now, another key piece of information that you may or may not have noticed by viewing the content a couple of minutes ago is that our staff was in a fairly large enclosure. So the cage that's viewed here in our live feed camera stream in our Visitor Education Center is the large flight enclosure. Here at Crow, we have about 18 different rehabilitation cages that are specifically designed to meet certain habitat requirements for patients to be able to be re-released. Now, the large flight enclosure, fun fact, is the largest cage that we have on our 12.5-acre campus. This cage is going to be specifically intended for animals like bald eagles, ospreys, turkey vultures, and really any of our larger predatory birds that need to be able to make full flight. Now, from the viewpoint here, it might be a little difficult to see. This cage is actually formed in an L formation. This 150 feet long cage is formed in an L to be able to allow our birds to practice turning during mid-flight. Since we not only want our patients to be able to get themselves up in the air and stay flighted, but we also want to exercise and do physical therapy and other important flight muscles here as well. If you're curious, though, about our other enclosures, I can take you over here to one of our exhibits in the Visitor Education Center that shows an entire map of our rehabilitation grounds on our campus. So we are up at the Visitor Education Center, but if you ever take one of our Wildlife Walk hospital tours down to the hospital, you'd be able to see signage down there that reflects the entirety of our campus. And you can see on cage number 14, this is our large flight enclosure to give you a little bit of a better visual. So thank you everybody again for joining us this week on Wildlife Wednesday. And if you enjoyed the content today, feel free to click on the donate button above to continue to support our cause, or just tune in next week. Have a good day.